This one is called Small Data, and it is by Martin Lindstrom. What this book is about, it's about how, in fact, small data, which means that we're not looking at syndicated data, we're not looking at data that comes from scanners and so forth. We're looking at data that comes from observations, personal observations with users, not statistical data, and again, trend type of data that you get from all kinds of products from stores. We're looking at what he does when he observes people using products and services. If what I put on your outline was several quotes about the problems with big data, and y'all, I enjoy reorganizing books. This is my synopsis, so I reorganize the book. So I pulled a lot of these from the back of the book, as you can see, because what this book is, and whoever wins this book today, or if you buy this book, this is 90% stories. And that's why my handout is smaller this month, because it's difficult to outline stories. In fact, I'll see in a few minutes if it's difficult to tell stories, but I'll do my best with that. But y'all, that is what the bulk of this is. He takes you inside of homes, and he talks about what he sees and what he did with the data. So I pulled this from the back, and I'll just do a few of these with you. I do everything I can ensure that company executives experience their stores and products in the same way consumers do. Skip the next two. If companies want to understand consumers, big data offers a valuable but incomplete solution. I would argue that our contemporary preoccupation with digital data endangers high-quality insights and observations, and thus product and product solutions, and that for all the valuable insights big data provides, the web remains a curated, idealized version of who we really are. Skip one, go to the next one. Big data might find it hard to find meaning or relevance. In every study I mentioned there is a missing question. How might these findings be combined with small data to affect or transform a brand or business? The next one, as accurate then as big data can be while connecting millions of data points to generate correlations, big data is often compromised whenever humans act like, well, humans. As big data continues helping us cut corners and automate lives, humans in turn will evolve simultaneously to address and pivot around the changes technology creates. I made a list of all the stories in the book, and again, y'all, this is 90% stories, and I'll wrap up with one of these. This is the one I thought was the funniest or the cutest. It was chapter 3, the United Colors of India, selling breakfast cereal to 2 generations of warring women. And what happens is he went to New Delhi because a cereal manufacturer was concerned about declining sales. They couldn't figure out why their most popular cereal had declined so much, particularly among female buyers. And this guy thought it was going to be easy until he actually got in and started working with consumers. And he said, it's interesting because in the Indian culture still, around 8 million, mostly teenage Indian brides marry young men chosen by their parents. Many don't have the privilege of meeting their new husbands until their wedding day. Having moved in with new strangers, a new daughter-in-law is expected to cook, clean, and naturally provide grandchildren, all under the oversight of her mother-in-law. So the warring women are daughter-in-laws and mother-in-laws, which is always not particularly a great combination, not just in India. But anyway, an Indian mother-in-law sheriffs the household, exerting quality control regulations over every aspect of domestic life. She knows what foods to buy and the best recipes and cooking and techniques and everything else. So anyway, the daughter-in-law is inevitably the person who opens the door and greets a visitor. Her mother-in-law waits inside, as she is literally and symbolically the proprietor and ruler of the house. So y'all, setting up this idea of what these 2 different women are all about. Once a visitor is inside an Indian home, a few things become immediately apparent. The daughter-in-law may have been the one to greet you at the door, but once you take a seat, she sits there quietly saying nothing unless she's called upon to speak, at which point she shyly volunteers a few words. The larger point is that conversation starts and stops with the mother-in-law. So one of the things he started discovering is what turned on the mother-in-law, what turned on the daughter-in-law, And one of the things that happened was he asked who is in charge of the kitchen. Well, y'all, they both claimed they were in charge of the kitchen, but that actually was not the case. And what he started doing, this is really bizarre. Look how small this data is. Y'all, he looked at how these women laid out the spices they used when they were cooking, and he said the spices you use they put by the stove. And what happened was he made it a point to ask every Indian mother-in-law if they would mind showing me the spices inside their boxes. And the powders nearest the stove mimic the same colors of the clothing worn by most Indian mothers-in-law. They were the same colors that were highlighted in photographs and so forth. That's when I realized that the spices were trying to tell me something, contradicting what almost every single daughter-in-law had told me. It was in fact a mother-in-law who did most of the cooking in Indian households, and the color of the spices confirmed it, because those were the ones who were next to the stove. Well, the problem with the cereal box was, y'all, the box, and the reason it had declining sales, was filled with colors that were not attractive to both kinds of women. The color on the packaging, Indian mothers were enhanced by vivid, colorful packaging designs made up of colors that daughter-in-law saw as unnatural, unorganic, and artificial. Yeah, look how small that data is, really, about spices to colors to packaging, but that's what turned people off in buying the cereal. And so, in essence, what he did was he redesigned the packaging where the colors of one group, what they would look at, they would see like the top of the box, because that's what they focused on, and the other group, the daughter-in-law, would look at the bottom half of the package, colors that she liked, and that's what turned her on as well. So it's a wild story. I don't know if anybody here ever thought about looking at something that small, but that is small data. I hope you all enjoyed this synopsis of small data.